How do you do? Welcome. Thank you for showing up. How do you do? Welcome to this event. My name is Beto Martinez, co-director of the International Festival of Series of Barcelona. This is the second year we work together with Primavera Pro. And we are very happy with this debate this year, especially because we have the opportunity to release, to premiere the festival in October, in the festival, one of the best Spanish series ever released last year, which is La Ruta, related to La Ruta del Bakalao route. And we are happy because we've gathered here some members of the team behind the soundtrack of the series, with a great composer in Barcelona, Clara Aguilar, and the three of them will discuss everything. The reason behind this debate is that we have a Ruta del Bakalao series with its own soundtrack, a new one. I mean, a series that is based on a specific time in history of music with so many standards, made by current composers, updating it, taking into account the standards of the time that characterized that social phenomenon in Spain back in time. Today, with us, Álex de Lucas, watching here the screen of his cell phone because he doesn't remember what the series was about. Álex de Lucas, Raúl Santos, with a great CV as musicians in different bands, the Parrots. Even he drummed for Los Planetas back in the 90s, who recently specializes in composing soundtracks. They've just composed Cardo. They did it before La Ruta. Now they hit it with La Ruta together with Pional, as I'll tell you later. One of the aspects of La Ruta is that they generated two soundtrack composition teams, one Pional related to soundtracks from the 90s in the series, and Álex de Lucas and Raúl Santos, who composed the soundtrack related to the 80s. Clara Aguilar will chair an input into the debate. Let's introduce it. It is remarkable. Clara is remarkable because she's a producer, a musician herself. She is multi-purpose. Since 2017, she's stood out on the stage, making soundtrack for Self-Tape, a filming series, which is wonderful. She's here with us today on the stage. We wanted to gather three big composers instead of having two composers, one journalist, asking them. I am a journalist myself. Perhaps I'm attacking myself, but we wanted to have this debate with inputs from three artists. Welcome and enjoy it. Thank you for showing up. Thank you, Beto, for inviting my input to this debate. There will be Q's and A's. The floor will be given to the audience for Q's and A's. My aim as composer is first congratulating you because I watched the series. I have many friends inputting into that. As a composer myself, I have many questions to ask you related to a project where music stands out, is the big theme behind it. Music related to aesthetics, a specific speech. Usually when we are suggested a project, people come to us with the standards, with references here. There was a historical topic in our territory, in a region where everyone knows what bacalao is. And I guess, why were you the chosen ones? Why do you think you were chosen for this project, the two of you? Why? I was recording back then in Seville with an artist, and suddenly I had a message on the cell phone. I left the studio. I don't usually do it, but I left the recording studio. Someone called Juan Ibáñez, himself a music supervisor who usually deals with helping series, films getting acquainted with the music that goes into them, telling me that he was dealing with La Ruta, a series called La Ruta del Bakalao, and that our names showed up because we had been known to have been in bands, playing guitars, doing band music. First, he told me that they wanted to split it into two. First, bacalao, singing, and música cañera, music. When La Ruta started, there were many bands, many guitar players, and music was electronic. The transition from rock to genre. Yes, my first top of mind was, fuck you, how are we going to make original music for La Ruta? It's pre-existing. There is a cap on budget on these things, and our challenge was very nice to pick up, to face, and the opportunity to deal with that time, to those times you've not gone through, makes you go through them again, and I like that. You were born in 1989, and you're Raúl. I was born in 1975, so you went through it. Yeah, I did live it. I switched on the TV, and it was everywhere. Did you live it first person? Yes, I did live it. I switched on TV, channel 1, channel 2, accidents, motoring accidents on La Ruta, youth issues, youth going to La Ruta from Madrid, from Valencia. It was always there in our minds. And that was the issue with youth at the time. You had been working already in Cardo together. Was it the first time you met? In Cardo was the first time we met together. We worked together. So you had a previous project. You are called, and you are told you are the ones in charge of doing the second part of it. The series started in the 90s with aesthetics related to the 90s. Let's go back in time. Then you deal with the 80s side of it. Yes. The first thing we were told was that they consider soundtrack as the series as well as a sort of vinyl, a record. They had side A, side B were given the side B of it. Since the series goes reverse, we did like it. They consider it as a vinyl record, and it made sense. Even the narration of the story, they based it on the A side and B side of it, of the record. Pionel, who is one more artist, a composer dealing with the soundtrack of the 90s. What's the dialogue? How you plan together with this artist? Or did you do your thing and did he do his thing? There wasn't too much dialogue amongst the three of us. There were dialogues with the director. Borja shared with us what he was up to. Borja Soler did update us on what he shared with Pional. I met him twice. We talked for a while, but eventually we had so much work to do. We had so much music to do. Eventually, we didn't do anything, both of us together. How did you meet personally? Before Cardo? How did you eventually say, well, we are a couple, because getting along with someone in the studio is okay, but meeting someone across who's got something you lack, or perhaps they're similar in some roles, because producing, composing are multifaceted issues. Since you launch the idea until you get the sound you want, it's picking up a palette and saying, these are the sounds we're going to work on. How did you meet, and which role did each one of you play in the creation process? We met because we were introduced by common friends. We started to coincide during the pandemic when he moved to where I have the study, above his place, above my place, yes. At the same time, back then, our birthday was the same day. This generated friendship. We made music as well with a band we shared, and that vicinity led to him understanding I could understand what that story implied in electronic music in the early 90s. It was very simple. I have many concerns, many ideas inside me. I can play instruments, but I'm not a player myself. I move according to energies, and Raúl freaks out because of the things I share with him. For instance, let's go up to heaven and let's get shut down and we die. This is what I shared with them and with him. And he stares at me and suddenly he says, yes, that's what I was asking you to do for me. So we eventually agree with one another on it. Since I'm with him, I do learn a lot from him. I feel enabled, empowered to be with him. At the beginning, somehow, I felt overwhelmed by him because I didn't know how to size up the situation, how to size him up, because he is an engineer, he's a producer, he's a musician, he's got a big CV behind him. He is, I say, like those hands, let me freak out. I'm the brain, he is the hands. I must understand what I'm being told. What does it mean? And all the references to standards going into it. There is no rocket science about it. It's just paying attention and getting set on it. This is why we can do it together and we agree on it. If we both did the thing, the same things, each one will go his way about it. That's why we work together. I tell him that this, I can't do it myself on my own and the other way around. There is a very big input from him in everything I do and a big input of me going into everything he does. This is the reason behind it. Without him, I'm totally lost. There's so many data and the same happened to me. Let's go back to the start of the project when you're called and they tell you we're going to do this and that. Let's discuss a creation project, a big project like this. A historic issue related to specific aesthetics. And you have to look for sounds from the time. Tell me how you started. So, did you do a previous study? Tell me how the creative dialogue went between you. There is usually a little bit of everything, a mixed bag in series, depending as well on your relation with the producer, the director. E.g., in Cardo, we even saw the dailies. The day they shoot, you can watch it at home for you to imagine it, to see in colors. Regarding La Ruta, what we first saw was chapter 6. It was cut. It takes place in Spook Discotheque with the symbol of the bat on it, and Borja wanted to share that with us because for him it was a challenge of the side B of the record. I mean, everything happens in the lavatory, and the music being played there had to be original, made by us. But sounding like La Ruta, there's only one theme at the end of the chapter. We bought the copyright for that to play it, and each scene changes from one lavatory to the next. And for it to succeed, we switch from one theme to the next. There are 13 themes in the lavatory sequence, cut in different environments, coinciding with specific people in one stall in the lavatory. So you watch the chapter and you start producing on that basis. Do you send models, ideas, and the dialogue starts like this day. And Juan Ibanez, who was the music supervisor I told you about earlier, they had a lot of research conducted and had provided us with playlists. La Ruta guitars. So we were the guys of las guitarras, the guitars, and we were given several playlists. If you YouTube for Session Spook 1980, there are sessions recorded on YouTube from that time telling you how people DJ'd. Fran Lenar was actually the one who learned how to mix the tempos in music, and these were told in a spook. They had eclectic music, I mean electronic in the music together with this mixed with that. Several genres should have to live together. And we had to deepen into that. That was our lot, checking which instruments they use, which synthesizer, which rhythm boxes, and we had to DJ that. A very nice start line was that in one of the scenes of the chapter, they are talking in the lavatory, and two people, two characters, talking about a last theme launched, released by a band, and one says, they did it with the new synthesizer CMI. At the time, this rang a bell in our minds. Let's look for that. We looked for CMI, which is a synthesizer with a computer keyboard with a mouse. And it has a screen looking like this. It's a PC keyboard, piano keyboard, and the screen of a usual PC, of a traditional laptop. And we had links about how to mimic that sound. That's wonderful. It's wonderful to check how much music's changed. Plugins. When I have to decide what I use for a project, what I bring, that decision usually helps me limit myself, put a cap on what I do, because I have so many things to take into account about plugins or samplers or libraries that help you recall a specific sound, a specific time. Tell me how far you've been freaking out when looking for the rhythm of the time and being faithful, saying, no, if it's not analogic, no, if it's not the vintage rhythm box, not the one I did it later, no. That has been edited later. We use the technology from the time, but always using instruments, because that's what sounded more similar to the references we had from the time. Even with microphones. We used 70s Sennheiser, things from the time. DX7, Yamaha keyboard, a famous keyboard. That one Raúl had in the studio. It comes together with tapes, sort of cassettes you insert in. If you don't have 200 cassettes, you have only 24 sounds, so you use plug-in to check how many other items you could use. Guitars, bass, drums, all that's analogic, recorded by us with amplifiers, yes, chorus, fenders. All that was conducted in your studio. Much time went into it. Months went into looking for sounds, plugins, etc. Yes, shaping it up. Those were the instruments we had. Next, looking for the nuances, the shades of the songs. Darkness, it implied months of work for us. A typical thing of the time was that songs took 5 minutes. And in my life, I've never composed such long songs. Since they belong to scenes, they needed to go up, down, these drums here, drums change. It's been funny doing it. Listening to 5 minutes without getting tired. That was the key to it. These themes have been listened to us, but remaking them suddenly, my God, you had to invest 2.5 minutes in one part of it, and it was very hard. Perhaps it's been the strangest thing that's happened to us, going, wow, the original takes even 3 minutes in this section. We said, wow, those people were in the studio, let's freak out about it. Let's go crazy, let's go bonkers about it. Let's have this and that, because it's a mixed bag of different structures in the songs when we're mixing them. Everything was very freaky, very bonkers. And are you proud of what you've used? Or do you rather say, well, I have sounds of mine, I do them like this, but I don't want to share them? Or is it the other way around? We've used this, this, and this. This is not my case. If you ask me, I say what I did. I discuss it freely. We have no secrets about it. As of today, I think everyone can do everything in music. And it's been evidence that many who are at home start playing with a GarageBand with a computer, and they can make a theme that goes into Spotify. The only secret is the decision you eventually make. That's the only secret. Think about it. And you can't circulate it around because there are feelings, private feelings in it. Sometimes you don't feel anything about it, but it is a must for you to do it with that sound, and perhaps you're not feeling nothing for it, but that's the way I must do it. Did you work with references? You told me about the lists you were given by Spotify, by bands of the time. Are any references that you listen to and you say, we want to go especially for this because of the sound of it, because of the lyrics in it, because of the structure, as you said? Vis-a-vis lyrics, the ones written, I got based on the night, and I assumed that characters were vampires, so I do refer myself to blood-sucking vampires the night. Back then, the choirs were I love you, I love you, I love you, or this is shit, or I'm not gonna dance, and they repeated that again and again. There was very little development. Everything was repetition-based. Concerning bands, the ones we listened to, there were very good references, and the work previously done was very clear about it, telling me where I had to go to, where we had to go to. And if we were not happy with someone, I just Google for La Ruta in Spotify, and many people, fans who love La Ruta, have their own playlists. And these did help me decide, well, this was played there, this was played here. We've realized that there were very few, especially on our side, very few Spanish bands being played at the time. Everything back then was brought from Europe, was imported from Europe. And I feel that they didn't have to many chances because people prefer to listen to things brought from abroad. I've only seen the series once. I've not reviewed the material myself, but I tell you again that my feelings that scripts are too stylish. The story, the development of the story, the narration is stylish. The same applies to the music in the chapter 1, which is the introduction, which is the year 1993. We are just switching to Amnesia Ibiza. That's the time. So this is what happened to me. Since everything's music is not real original music, you've not paid copyright, you picked up records from the time. Constantly some things have been bought. In every chapter there are themes that have been bought because we had to pay copyrights. There is some sort of aesthetic stylishness about the series. Do you agree with me on it? In the series. It may be positive, it's not derogatory. It was hard, but they don't over-harden it. It could have been more cruel. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not clear about it. In order to narrate that story, perhaps we should have dipped into it. If you have not gone through the story and you have it told by someone else, it's difficult to make people experience it, to tell them what it implied. They met many people, especially DJs back from the time, those who went to the discos, who told us that in Valencia there was a record shop, and first DJ who came there, the records were released, took it all, and the others had to buy the leftovers. They fought over DJing the record no one was acquainted with. Now I DJ. People tell me, could you play this record for me everyone is acquainted with? With the La Ruta, it was the other way around. It was finding out new things. Oh, what did it come from? Who's the band behind this or that? and asking the DJ, listen, which theme have you been playing? I don't know where it came from. Or breaking record when it was too famous, saying it's been played on the radio, they broke it, and people celebrated it. This happened in Bacarra. Music is alive. Characters are listening to it through the series. It's not the usual way to approach a soundtrack that is supporting a company, stylizing, provoking something with the music style, as it is usually the case. There is a time when there is a key scene. It is a farewell, it is a very emotional time. About it, I said, well, there is some soundtrack here that we are supporting what's going on in the scene, and it's being DJed by no one. This is, is it everything diegetic? Were you asked to be diegetic about it? Borja explained that, was very clear about it. We were talking about it earlier. We want to do something in order to arrange a scene, and Borja clarified for us that it was a music series, there was music in it, and the thing to do was to play it when it had to be played. When it actually was, someone was playing it, when characters were in the disco, this was a very good decision. So, at the time when that appears, which is a farewell, that's a very emotional time in the series, when you realize, wow, this matches it. Even if the theme is different, it's more ambience related. Yes? That was what was the time when we sat together with Borja. He came to the studio, and we shared things with him and asked him, listen, dude, what happens with this? Wouldn't you like to do this or that? No, I want to have the soundtrack. The soundtrack has to be played in the parking, inside the car, in the disco. That's all. It's been a very good choice, I think. You wouldn't have done it differently, no? Not at the time. We were releasing ideas, brainstorming. That was the right decision. He wanted everything to be pure, to be real. His approach to the series is very cinema-related, watching what's going on, the scenes that take place in the family, at home, children who don't get along with parents, who don't understand their children's life, that silence you listen to when there is nothing is very crude, very raw, and this I like. And I watched it later, and I said, what a big decision, great decision it was. Tell me the most difficult thing you had to do during the process. Sometimes we get stuck, or they get stuck. The most difficult thing, I can't remember now. Let me tell you that every time Borja showed up, he said, I'm happy with it, I love it, I love it, I love it. He never raised trouble for us. I love, what did it mean? Listening to music without images or with images supporting it? Image free. Listening music, image free. Our music is background music, most of it. In the series, the themes played, the big themes are the ones played as a music clip. A music clip, you see characters against a background of music, but frequently our thing was just hardly listening to it. So with images, it made no sense watching it. We went there, we spent 2 hours playing 5-minute themes for him. So you were producing, composing, you have material, and for him, and he said, this can work, this can work, this can't work, this goes for that moment, this goes for that moment. You didn't work with images, didn't you? No, we didn't. Chapter 6, for instance, the discotheque scenes, we had to play discotheque themes. Let me tell you that I do like watching images. And images were always on the project, on the screen, as we played music, and we watched that, because images recall things, evoke things, and in your lyrics you You may be saying something related to what's going on to convey that feeling. Actually, images I always play. That's the way I conceived making music for series, watching images as I do it, and I do like watching it. Let me tell you that the most difficult thing I had was sometimes when we had to create music for moments that were very hard. We had worked and for a while, and I said that's a very heavy sound to work on, raising in you feelings that exhaust you emotionally. Yeah, the music was hammering on you. Música machacona, repetitive hammering music made with synthesizers. That's what machacona music is. Spending many hours a day doing it, eventually, when you leave the studio, you either go to sleep or you go partying because it's exhausted you emotionally. Do you have the feeling that versus you have listened to the chapters? What's the big difference you made between both times? Electronics made it. Our part goes backwards, reverses. But if we go from back to the front, the themes that were played in La Movida, Carajera, Rocker, Bad, Psychobilly, and sometimes next, Gothic rock appeared, played in Chocolate, a disco. The director of which said it was a cult. El Gitano, Tony El Gitano was the director, the owner. It was their shrine, and no one was allowed to fuck up with them. They were dressed as vampires or vampire priests. Everything was Gothic about it. So Gothic rock from Sweden, from Germany came, followed by Spook, with the release of the Principles of Electronics. Kraftwerk, coming to Spain from Central Europe. Spiral next. Electronics is going deeper. And there are fewer acoustic elements, so to speak. There is less guitar, less drumming, less real bass. Everything is more synthetic. And PMs are related to it, yes? BPMs went from slow to fast. Chocolate and Gothic rock and industrial themes related to electronics that just goes poof pa, poof pa, poof pa, which is very slow, drives to you know where. You are either there in that environment or that can go any further. Industrial music is as hard as this. There are no breaks. It is just lying against the baffle. That was very hard. And you are a drummer and you recorded drumming. In this case, rhythm boxes from the time. For them to sound like this, you have to research into it. Did you have them? No, I didn't. We had an XR5 from Yamaha. The rest was looking for that and samplers, working with samplers. You've said something very important in our work, which is you have to look for a sound palette. I do like it. I must decide what gets in, what doesn't. Working with directors, some directors direct you as if you were a gaffer of an actress, and just a composer say, in order to get this as instructed by you, let me pick up this theme or these BPMs or some tones or atonalities in order to make it up. So what happens with investments? How far should we go? Or do we invest as producers? If it is a play or a series like La Ruta, it's two different scenarios. But tell me how far for you it is a prerequisite, or how you go about investing in plugins, materials, studio material, instruments. It is my life, actually. I'm always investing. There are times when you can invest, at times when you can't. I always invest in a guitar, in a bass, in one more amplifier, in a keyboard. I sell it. I buy something new. I've been doing it for the last 30 years. I can't conceive any different way to go about it. I wanted to have this sound. If I had money, I purchased a microphone, a new keyboard, a guitar. There are many thousands in the studio, and you say, shall I use again that keyboard? Or your things are okay arranged in the studio for you to switch them on and to make them play, and eventually you fall back upon your, in each project, opening up your studio again, revisiting everything in them, sounds you have there stored, and you say, okay, this is the way we go, because perhaps you get over familiar with things you know to work, and you have to reverse and start anew. Fortunately, each project requests from you things that are not usually related with what you've been up to until then. When talking about directors and you don't know what to do with them, back to it. Some time ago, we were told we were working on a series, and they didn't tell us which instruments they wanted us to play. One said, give me a palette of colors, green, red, blue. The other counterpart told me to do this. Usually it happens to us that everyone apologizes to us because they don't know about music, they don't know how to make themselves clear. So they think these are the things they say, which I do like. I convey them down to Raúl next, and that's what we create. It's sometimes to understand what they are up to. Usually for me it's easier. Again, when they tell me what they want, where they want to go to, I want to create a situation of overwhelming, of distress. This is my theme. Conversely, they tell me, I want you to use something sort of delays. They tell you about technicisms they repeat from other projects they learned from, and it's even worse because no, tell me, instruct me where you want to go to instead of telling me how to do it. Because I was working with Elena Martin, la película, and Elena told me, I've got the feeling I have many references to send you. And I thought, oh, it's tricky, it's treacherous. Listening to many references sometimes is even worse because it gets inside me. And I'm looking for that. And references are even worse for the director because our job sometimes, they get in love with the references, and you must give your thing to them. And I like it, they say. References are not a library, however. Now let's leave La Ruta. Tell me about Cardo. Other projects that you've shared personally. Tell me about the creation process when working with other people and you have to face, as we say, how do we work taking into account that the other side there is no producer, no musician? Back to the previous issue, excuse me. No, I would use the same words to explain it. As a musician, I can tell you, give me a synthesizer in 80, go up 3 dBs. No, communicating like this about music, this is not the way. Music is what they tell you. Excuse me for being so technical about it. I don't know how to make it clear for you. No, you're making it clear to me. That's it. You talk, and as a musician, I know what you are telling me about. That's the deal to reach. You're not talking to someone who doesn't know what's it about. You are talking to a musician, and we musicians must be sensitive to what you say in order to create. And I assume that each project, each person is different. There are directors who, for instance, keep everything in their minds. Art, music, lighting, photo, photographing, and for some directors, first shooting, next they have to cut the chapter, and next, after editing, they talk about music with you. Everything that you sent to him earlier sometimes happened to us. Okay, but it seems that it goes nowhere. And when they've finally edited it and listened to it again, oh, that's wonderful. And other directors who say, no, here there are some drops that, and you could sample them, and you tell them, welcome to the studio, and let's sample those drops you've introduced, and let's make a hit. But let's watch these things, because I remember once I was told that someone volunteered to record the choir. I imagine this, I can record it for you, he told me. And he was the director. How could I tell him, you are overdoing it? It's necessary for you to come to my place to record it. Recently, I was told, I go to the studio and I tell you the items I need here and there, and it looked, wow, it may be a very complex situation to tackle. It will be a solution sometimes as well. Since you are too deep into it, tell me what you want exactly, and I'll put it on the table for you. Back to La Ruta. The plots with characters. Lucas, Marribo, Sento. I know you've not followed up in your soundtrack the development of a character on the scene on the stage, but tell me the one you drew most inspiration from for your creation process, or the most inspiring scene, or the most inspiring character for you. Sorry for repeating it, but first we watched Spook Chapter 6 with a scene where the character, Guillermo, Lucas, talks about Danzamania. That's the start of the series. The voice and the off voice. And he conveyed to me something, and I said, well, this is La Ruta. This person here talking about Danzamania with his younger brother who's getting famous, and for me the relation between the brothers, that's very good. It's okay. I think that it fits the whole series, personally. Next, the group of friends is incredible. It's very well done. I drew my inspiration from them. I thought, cool, making music for something like that. Did you read the scripts, the lines before that? I was sent the lines. I had been told about it. I had read things, but I didn't read them 100%. And we were asked, do you want to make it? Yes. And they gave us a chapter. The initial editing was very fast, as you know. As the record, there is someone in the editing room in Madrid who is picking up all the scenes and doing a section that may take 3 hours until the director comes in and instructs you to do this or not to do that. The sections came in fast, and you had a look at the aesthetics, the art behind it, and watching that help you get into the mood to make the music for that. And your music is played, sounds in the parking, in the club, in the lavatories. After chapters were edited, did you pass your opinion about the sound design? Because you've mixed, you've produced the songs, you've mastered them. You did the technical side of it, Raúl, and you are looking for sounds that are not disco-like, because that's not to be played by you at home. It goes to a series that is happening in a specific place with a post-production technical team that will process it. Tell me how far you had the opportunity to have a voice and a say in that part of it. Yeah, we were given the opportunity. As a musicians, we feel respected by Borja, the director, a lot. And songs and musics, he wanted us to have a look at them. Even editors, cutters did take care of us. They were using Dolby Atmos. In the editing studio, we had 8 loudspeakers everywhere around us, and some designers recommend you that when watching series at home, you should do it with earphones on. That's the best way to feel their work. The loudspeaker of the TV set really dilutes the quality of their work. We should put on earphones, very big earphones, in order to appreciate the subtleties of the music in the background of the series. Let's mix up 5, 6, 8 years. We attended all the editing sessions, and that was so cool because we could talk with sound designers about how music should sound. He said, I've been doing my research work, let's try this and that. Do you like this cut here? Do you like the way it is now? When you delivered the material, did you do it as pure LR, or was it 5-1? All air without stem separation? No. Music from the 80s is LR, 90s is LR. Music in the 2000s is LR. It could be LR, but as it happens with projects, you could deliver it by stems. So that they make a loop like this, no? This was the case here. And when designing sound back to the scenes of the lavatories, characters were here and the club was here. And next, the dancing floor was here and the lavatories were here. It was music was around you. You were moving from one place to the next with music accompanying you through. There was music always, all the time, and you could appreciate how it came from every corner around you. In the lavatory, whether open or closed, it sounded like this or like that. Music. So alert can be moved wherever you want to, but the conversations, talks. That's what you eventually edit with your Dolby Ample. Is it possible to have a live of the soundtrack? Yeah, it's possible. Have you approached it? No, we haven't. But it's possible, it's likely. I've told him, dude, one of these days you should have a gig. And when we have many more soundtracks, we should be live on a stage with it. Had we suggested to do that, this would have been done, and it will be okay. So many minutes total? How much footage? We've always talked about themes. I was told you have to do 35 themes, and we've done some 40, 35 themes, 38, 37, I think. Not all of them have been published. Yes, not published in the soundtrack. Not published all of them, but they all are in the series. I was watching the chapters, and I was saying from Proton, this is a scene, and some said, I couldn't find it. It is a big hit, and it is original soundtrack, because I couldn't find it anywhere. This was your voice. Or Raúl's, yes, he even dared sing in one scene. No, I couldn't find it. In fact, there was someone over there telling you where the song at that minute why are published, because sometimes they are too short. And we had to share with Pional. Pional made 35, 40 themes as well. So he had a lot to do, but the publishing house told us that they thought they had to do a choice. They had to choose. We are instructed to choose, to have a choice, but some producers tell us, let's release the whole thing together, 45 themes. They wanted to make a record, side A, side B, including all the themes together. We couldn't make everything go into it. We gave samples of each disco. You have to keep one. It would be, this is my top one. Which one should it be? I do love myself La vida está loca. Me duele la cabeza. I can tell you an answer. I can answer because several I do like them. La vida está loca is cool. My favorite is the one I couldn't find published. Where did you get it? Sorry, I don't remember that. And was it English or Spanish? Someone was singing, but I'm not sure. I think they were singing in Spanish. Was it inside the car? No, later I'll think it over for you. So it's time to give the floor back to the audience for questions to our panelists. Use the mic, please.
Aquí delante.
Esto es un clásico.
That's the usual thing. No one dares. Yes, they dare.
Acá me anoté un par.
Tell me whether this soundtrack has been a case of recreating original music being played back then, or whether it is music you did some storytelling into. I created this character, for instance. This is the theme supporting him in this scene, featuring a kiss, the band changes, the track changes, or is it creating the music back then that supports as if it were original music, not especially conceived for the series? There is a previous work of storytelling. Next, we are recreating a time, specific sound of the time. On the director's side, that's been the case. This goes with these people. Our job was recreating something specific of 1983, 1987, 1989. Borja replaced themes and tried to do some storytelling. As you said, there was a kiss there, and a livelier theme was played, or perhaps a dull theme was played. Some songs, including lyrics. I wanted them to deal with characters, but we never got set on a specific one. We always used to pick up the whole bunch of friends together. The idea of La Ruta as a concept, and discos being the meeting place, the gathering place. We don't know why that wasn't the best time to be in Spain, and this brought them together. When you spend too much time in La Fiesta, this usually happens. Thank you. So that's it. He said he had many questions to ask.
Momento Pantera.
Hi. Tell me whether the directors approached any time using producers from that time, because all music producers in the soundtrack didn't go through it. Was it a conscious decision? The party at the end of the shooting of Cardo, I met Borja Soler and told him, I know you're dealing with shooting La Ruta. I could work for it. This is what I told him. I had met him before. I suggested him, and he said, dude, it would be wow, but I think that all the music will be original and new music will be done by La Ruta DJs. But with time, they realized that for that purpose, it was too big a job making a whole soundtrack, and that's not their job now in their lives. So I assume that they would eventually make the decision that the best thing to do was instructing us. But the original idea was, to start with, that Fran Lennon and these people made the music for the series as producers of some themes. But actually, it was never the case. Did you get feedback from someone back then who did go through it? I mean, DJs. I had it, but I'm very bad with with names, and in the end of the shooting party, Borja introduced us to many people. Generally speaking, everyone no one could discriminate whether they were real songs or the ones created by us. So it implies that we're very good at it somehow. Thank you. Welcome. Good afternoon. Clara asked about specific complex, difficult times in the process of production. My question is related to sounds from that time. Tell me about any specific sound that made you think, how could they get it, this synth, this rubber, where did it come from, which we couldn't reproduce. There have been many times of, what the fuck, how could they get this rubber, such a long rubber, or such a high pitch in the rubber? There were times we had to mimic something similar to it because we couldn't find a way to reproduce it, to parrot it. And it's difficult because these plays they used to mix with belong to different qualities, sound cards were added. So we were using now the same rubber, but there is a difference between recording it on a digital item or on an ADAT. This has been the case, but the longer you invest into researching, you realize you can somehow get it with other tools. But to start with, it was really crazy. Some grave and grave sounds, because there were very few grave frequencies, and those who hear it on the earphones told me, it sounds too much, they couldn't equalize, we over-modernized it, so suddenly that power didn't exist. Now it exists. When you work on it, you do realize it. In the middle of it, we realized that we could achieve it with other resources. La Ruta deals with people paying on mezcal, which is a drug that made everyone happy. And it disappeared eventually. It's impossible to reproduce it, to bring it back to life. There was a theme as if someone was hammering on bottles of gas, and we tried to reproduce it and we couldn't. But it's been released, it's been launched. Iceberg 242 live on a stage play hammered on gas bottles. They staged performances. It was not being live on stage, but performing, as they said.
Quería hacerles algunas más puntuales.
More questions from me. Which digital audio station did you use? Image cutting by the director was imposed upon you. This is the final cutting. Was it imposed on you, or were you allowed to go, well, the length has been changed, that we need another 8 beats? Let me answer the second question for you, Borja. Actually, Borja Soler was very clear about it from the beginning, how he shot it, how he wrote for it, and the way he dished it out for us, just two scenes change. He was very clear about what he wanted from the beginning, with logic, sometimes especially live, but especially logic. That was our basis to go. Next, external syntax, internal syntaxes. There is a whole picture behind each theme. On top of Borja, did you have one more screening for approval, someone else to approve of your job? The producer, I imagine that Borja accounted for to ATRESmedia, the end producer, but he never told us anything, so I assume that ATRESmedia was happy with our work. I think that Borja, the way he shared that with his colleagues, with those he made the script, were very clear about it, and Borja went straightforward for that at the beginning, and this is what he was in our mind. He was a really big enchilada, and this happens very rarely, that the final idea is the one you started with. But he had spent 2 years with the project. He told me he had spent 2 years keeping it in his mind with the outbreak of the pandemic, had forgotten it. This is never to be released. And in the middle of the pandemic, ATRESmedia called him, listen, that thing of La Ruta you had, we want to make it. But he thought La Ruta was totally dead.
Ya estamos.
¿Ya está?
That's it. Anything to add? So thank you very much for having come. Thank you for your attention.
E se